So we have brought you all here today to celebrate, commemorate that Hedgepig Theater Ensemble is officially Expand the Canon. We've been that way for a while, but we're just making it official and telling everybody, telling the world.
This is our history. This is our legacy.
My name is Alicia Carroll, pronouns she, her, hers, and I am the marketing associate.
I'm Emily Lyon, she, her, hers. I am the artistic director of Expand the Canon. How funny to say that now, but also delightful and right.
Hello, I'm Marika Lumholt, she, her pronouns, and I am the managing associate as of a couple months ago here at Expand the Canon. Yay!
Hello, I'm Natalie Kane, she, her pronouns. I'm the research team coordinator for Expand the Canon and reading committee member of several years prior to that.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rhiannon Ling, she, her pronouns. I have worn a couple of hats at Expand the Canon, but I'm currently the social media coordinator and am a part of the research team. I have also been on the reading committee.
Hi, I'm Desiree Baxter. I'm a member of the Expand the Canon research team. I have been a Hedgepig ensemble member and have been on the reading committee. And I'm wearing my Hedgepig t-shirt. Just some of my Hedgepig swag.
I love it. I love swag. I love swag. I need some.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Pitt. I use the she theories. I'm on the research team.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tia. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a researcher with Expand the Canon.
Yeah, I love it. I want to start with Emily, having shepherded this transition. Could you tell us a little bit about Hedgepig's origins and what it was like to start Expand the Canon out of Hedgepig?
So part of the story goes that we were looking for what plays to do in 2019, and someone handed us a Catherine Trotter play. And Mary and I were like, who is that? Wait, what do you mean? There's a woman wrote a class. Hold on. Between our multiple degrees, no one told us this other than Offer Ben. And also, when they said Offer Ben, all they said was The Rover, which I have many feelings about. Another story. But yeah, so we discovered there were plays out there. There was another way that we could be highlighting women's voices, women's leadership, gender expansive voices and leadership in the classics. And as we kept trying to bridge this gap between some of the rare academia that is on shelves and sometimes just in people's brains to the professional world, to making sure that that's actually carrying over into how we produce, how we go about our work, who feels included and seen on stage and in classrooms and in classics in general. Expand the Canon just felt like the thing that we could really provide the industry the most and was the most specific, valuable, and really important thing that we could add.
Yeah. So now that we're officially Expand the Canon, which I will say, what is our focus now? Like we have a brand spanking new mission statement, and we've committed to expand the canon all day or a day. So how can you describe what we do now as an organization?
Gosh, there's so many ways to answer that question. And I'm not sure we've debuted our beautiful new mission statement to this group of people, so we could do that.
Yeah, you can debut it if you'd like.
Okay. Here we go. Expand the Canon champions women and gender expansive playwrights whose work should have always been considered classics. For over a decade, our partnerships with theaters, educators, and advocates have established a legacy of storytelling with gender equity at its core. By curating a collection of excellent historic plays, we're building a more inclusive and accurate theatrical canon.
Yeah.
The work of Hedgepig and the work of Expand the Canon are one and the same. We are still going to be researching, highlighting these plays. Researching is becoming a bigger part of our work and partnership, making sure that these plays that maybe exist in a few places can be much more accessible are starting to be produced, are known throughout the professional world. So that's the goal, that's the work, that's why we're here.
And everybody here has kind of found ETC in different ways. And I love that you're bringing up how research is the beginning of it all. Like that's how we're able to expand the canon in the first place. Could you tell us a little bit about how you came to this work and kind of what your day-to-day is as a researcher at Expand the Canon?
Sure. I can start this from the coordinating side since that is my role on the research team this year. We are a very cross-country and international committee. Our research team this year is about 12 from all parts of the country, different focuses within theater, some more academic backgrounds, dramaturgical backgrounds, and we have a couple of researchers up in Canada as well, bringing us some excellent archives that the rest of us are not geographically close to. So yeah, for myself, I'm a classics and new work focused director and dramaturg. Originally found Hedgepig through Expand the Canon, through the podcast, when the podcast was relatively new. Some actors that I had worked with in other capacities were involved and were sharing it. And I think I listened to a couple episodes, so I was able to get involved as a reader first and then have gotten more and more involved. On the research side, it's the first step of the process. So it's collecting plays so we can then read them, compare them, introduce them to theaters, all the other things that are part of the mission. So we do a lot of visiting archives, seeing what is in archives, looking at indexes, and then also doing further research on plays that we have. But for the most part, end goal priority is building out our very large, extensive database of playwrights that we have heard of, plays that we've heard of, scripts that we're looking for, just seeing how much we can locate. And I believe we are not quite there yet, but closing in on there being 10,000 titles tracked in that database.
That's such a staggering number that I kind of just want to call attention to. That is so many plays. And also just to think it's like growing up, going to, English class or something, and they kind of make you feel like there's only like 10 plays worth reading and they're all by these white dudes. And just to know that there's 10,000 other options. Like, not that I personally am going to read all 10,000. I don't have that much time, but it warms my heart to know like, oh, there is a play or multiple plays out there that will 100% resonate with me, that are classics. And eventually we will excavate as many of those as we can as we do this work over and over again. Incredible.
Well, since I just came back from the New York Performing Arts Library, where two very long scripts of works by Elsa Shelley, who is quote unquote a Russian American writer, playwright, but she also was an actor and director in the 1950s and 60s. And we were looking for specific works that were on the list. But of course, we get the big box of folders of her scripts. We open it up and we're like, oh, we don't have this. Oh, we don't have that. So two weren't on the list. So we now have two more. We're two more closer to 10,000. And so I just keep plugging away and going wherever my nose sort of leads me. And it's fun.
I'll jump in as well. We are a multilingual group in many ways, which is wonderful. We also have some translators on the team. Most recently, James Hyatt translated from French to English.
Yeah, Le Favori.
Which is phenomenal. And the scripts that we have compiled, the nearly 10,000, some of them still have yet to be translated, which is really exciting. But what that means is we really get to dig down into these international writers, as we like to say. And it is true, we have a play from every continent except Antarctica. For me personally, as someone who studied German throughout school, I got to dig into this massive database of femme German playwrights. And I think it stretched from the late 1700s to the late 1800s. And it was so unbelievably fascinating as someone who has delved into German theater before, to find these people that were, even in their time, known as the mother of German theater or the mother of German comedy, etc., Meanwhile, when we look at German theater from our very westernized patriarchal lens, we're taught like it's Brecht. That's it. That's all there is for German theater. And it was just so wonderful to dive in.
So many people on the research team have also been on the reading committee or curators. So I am curious, what is the process when you're on the reading committee or the curation committee? Like, what are you thinking about, like, when we're actually putting a gold stamp on these projects to call them classics, right? And induct them into our list? What does that process or criteria look like for you?
I joined as a reader on the reading committee last year in 2024, and I'm an actor first, so I come from the point of view as an actor. So when reading, we did short plays last year, 1X, and from my point of view, when I was presented with the script, I thought of, is this story being told currently? Is this story providing like a different angle, a different point of view? As an actor, how would it be to play these characters or have several characters shown in this light? Does it fall into sort of a trap or different tropes that already exist that wouldn't be helpful if it were seen today? Or is it different, something completely new? And what emotions or what journey is available to actors such as myself if we were to put on this play currently?
Something that we consider to be just as important, I think, as relevance, context, etc., is it fun to watch? Did you enjoy reading the play? Because if you did not, it probably will not be a classic. Now, of course, there is some subjectivity to that. Not everybody enjoys, Hamlet, but did you enjoy reading it? And I think that is just as important of a question as whose voice is this and how beautifully does their voice come through, or how strongly.
Of course, we want to get all these plays onto stages and into curriculums, but also into people's libraries. That's kind of my favorite aspect, is just, I love trying to get my friends to read plays as literature. And I think it's part of what can promote these plays beyond the stage and really make sure that they're household names. Because I think that's kind of the goal, is to make sure that these incredible writers end up being household names all over the world.
Another aspect that I have really enjoyed so far, going from that journey of reading it on the page, as you were talking about, and sort of discovering it for yourself, and then going to some of our partnership events, we were able to put together and see what theater companies and what other artists were finding in these plays and what the conversations were. It was a really fun aspect of that process to sort of see what partnerships and collaborations developed.
Yeah.
One of the great joys of being here at ISF, getting to do these plays actually as full productions, has been audience feedback. Probably my favorite piece of feedback from 2 years ago when we did Bold Stroke for a Husband was someone saying, I absolutely love this. I can't believe we didn't know about this play for 250 years. So that was really fun. Hopefully they become part of people's libraries, but also part of their hearts and their references, and how we build a vocabulary around what a classic is and what we hold dear in terms of storytelling.
Yeah, I love that. Incredible. So I want to chat with Marika. So we have our staff for Expand the Canon, and we have our lovely readers and researchers and education committee and volunteers in our board. It's like a huge organization. And so Marika, I know you started as a volunteer and then have kind of been moving up the ranks. So I wanted to know what initially interested you in Expand the Canon, and as you've gotten more involved, how's the experience been for you?
Yeah, so I first encountered Expand the Canon in deep COVID. It was like late 2020, and I was just missing theater. I didn't study theater at the time. I was not working in it professionally, so I was merely an avid audience member. And the plays that I was excited about were the plays that I was seeing get produced often. So what excited me were contemporary plays, and to me, the classic theater canon was just Shakespeare, basically, because that's all I knew. So I was excited when I encountered Expand the Canon, because I realized that A, that is such a false statement, and that is not the classic theater canon. There's so many more voices and playwrights that wrote things that I actually was very interested in and very excited by. And it also showed me that so much of contemporary theater is informed by the voices from the past that we're spotlighting and that we focus on, and what makes it into the classic canon. So I think my eyes were just really open to how much I had been missing. And yes, like you said, I made the transition from volunteer to working on the marketing side of things for a couple of years, and now stepping into a managing associate role. And every year that passes, I'm just so much more excited by all the new titles that we add to our Expand the Canon list, and how much I've learned and grown in my theater knowledge, and what excites me from a theater perspective. So I'm just thrilled to see it keep growing, and definitely why I've stuck around. And I'm excited for the future and how many more playwrights I will get introduced to that my eyes were closed to all this time.
I love that. And I also want to highlight that you were an avid audience member at first, because I think that's something that we haven't mentioned yet. So the list and all of our plays are available. People can subscribe, and for $25 a year, you can read them. We have 52 on there, shorts, one acts, full lengths. And if you are just a person who likes theater, you can also do that. Like, I think sometimes people think, oh, I'm not a director, I don't need to subscribe to Expand the Canon. But just if you're a person who loves theater, like, you can read these plays, even especially before they get produced. We're trying to add new partnerships and get more produced every year, of course. But for example, if you're not in Whidbey Island and you can't go to the production, you can also subscribe and access the plays that we're curating for everybody. But I love the journey of avid audience member to somebody who is involved, right? Because this is, it's a mission, it's a movement. We're going to need so many more people than just the people on our team to accomplish this, which brings me to the future of Expand the Canon. I'm curious what people's dreams are for the organization. I'll start with, actually, we'll end with Emily on this one. Whether it's next year, 5 years from now, 30 years from now, 100 years from now, what are your dreams for ETC or ETC's impact on the theater industry?
It's the rabbit holes. It's the rabbit holes that are interesting. And I think that's going to be ETC's legacy, particularly when I was reading or in these plays by Native American women. First of all, their concept of theater is mind expanding to begin with, because it doesn't follow our typical classic canon. Another branch of this could be like, how do we advocate for theater that doesn't fit our Western classic theater mold? We've already cracked the egg on this just by saying, oh, it's not just men, so there's that. And just rediscovering a lot of the language. And when we were talking about the fact that just reading plays as literature, there used to be something, I think they changed their name, but they died just before the pandemic. There used to be something called fireside theater. And for those of us who lived in the hinterlands, there was the Fireside Theater Book Club. And you could subscribe, and you got a play script every month. And for many people who didn't live in places that thriving theaters, this was the way you knew the latest plays and everything. So that's another thing, is there a women's fireside theater book club? There are just so many possibilities, but we're offering a place to start to go any direction that you want.
What I have really enjoyed in Expand the Canon so far, and hope that it's like a microcosm that the same thing will happen to the many, many other people and artists and audience members. From my own experience so far, learning about these plays and playwrights from ETC, I have been able to incorporate some of those pieces of plays, monologues, characters into some pieces that I have adapted and directed and been able to introduce actors to some of those characters and playwrights and titles and introduce audiences to some of those characters and playwrights and titles. Already that butterfly effect of most of the people who are hearing this language each time, this is a classical speech that they have not heard before. This is a playwright's voice that they have not heard before. And that's just always really inspiring to me of, okay, if that's one person on this committee introducing how many other people to some of these plays and playwrights, if everyone that has been touched by Expand the Canon in some way is also doing that, it can start to be a really, really large impact.
Yeah. When I think about the legacy of Expand the Canon, where I want us to continue, I keep coming back to the term education. And I don't mean that necessarily just in terms of academics, though, of course, I would love to get all of these plays into syllabi across the nation, across the world, frankly. But more so, like what Desiree was saying, bringing these folks' stories to places where they may never have been heard before. I grew up in an area that was predominantly white, German, etc. And stories from the indigenous tribes of the area were never told. We didn't get to hear stories from Black playwrights, really. Occasionally an August Wilson, maybe. I mean, God forbid, forget about hearing from a woman's voice. That has only begun to, in the realm of new works, begun to be a thing, because all they're hearing when it comes to classic language is, Shakespeare, Ibsen, Chekhov. They're going to see a very limited point of view, and a very limiting worldview is what they will receive, as opposed to seeing not only what they could be and what they could become, but also what everybody else could become, their potential. So I think that is what ETC is building to leave behind and to continue to leave behind. Yeah, and also just to give a fun little story to Natalie's point, because I have been fortunate enough to be in one of these fringe productions. They're such gifts to actors. I think of Leonora from Valor Gravio y Mujer, who has some killer monologues. My goodness, why are we not teaching those? But seeing the folks in the audience, I had friends who came up to me and said, wow, I want to use that. I want to use that now. Or, wow, I really wish I had been taught this. And I've heard from so many folks already who read these works or who have been able to study them in classrooms from ETC, incredible, who have told me it's one of the best scene studies I've ever done, or I never thought about it this way. Yeah, so education is my sort of buzzword as to where I would love ETC to go.
Yeah. I echo that. I think my dream is I'm usually the odd one out in theater spaces because I didn't go to school for theater. Like I grew up doing theater my whole life, but I didn't study it in college. So most of my knowledge of theater and classics is all from like literature class. And even having done like AP literature where they theoretically are supposed to give you more challenging or more unique books or things to read, they did not. And I think for people listening to this and not looking at my face, I'm a Black woman. And I think I only read Raising the Sun. I think that's the only one. Like we didn't even touch August Wilson, which is kind of crazy in my opinion. But, we didn't do anything beyond a Raising the Sun. And I also think I read it twice. I think I did it in like freshman year and then we did it again. I was like, again? Why? I mean, it's a great play. But also, like, there are other options. And I know that there are so many people, there are so many students that don't get involved if they don't feel like there's a role for them. So it wasn't until our school musical was like Hairspray or something that non-white people joined our theater club. And so I think that's true in the classroom too. It's like, if you don't see yourself in it, why would you be interested in it? Why, if it doesn't feel like there's a place for you in classic literature, why would you explore it, right? And so just letting people from a very young age know that their stories are already out there and giving them permission, or letting them give themselves permission to explore, I think is really powerful, because that could really shape the whole trajectory of a person's life, So that's really important to me. And my more cosmetic, like frilly dream is for us to have a library reading room, because you know how like Shakespeare has like monuments to him all over the place. You can go anywhere and there's like a Shakespeare library, there's a Shakespeare theater, I love him. He's a homie. But like, I would love for us to have an Expand the Canon library with like a cute reading room where people could have some wine and drink and like read some plays. I just think it would be very nice. And I love spaces where people can gather about things that they care about. And I do think that this is such an important it's an important mission, but it's an important category of literature and theater to isolate and have its own place of honor and veneration, in my opinion. And so I would love that. And I can be the programming director. I volunteer. So if anybody wants to fund said project, give us a call.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what everybody said, especially just expanding ETC's reach, especially to include more colleges. I come from a BFA program where, we studied the same classical playwrights every year, and really no one new was introduced, or you end up leaving with like the same 5 characters or monologues, plays that everybody else in their own BFA programs graduate with. So I think if I was exposed to a list like this earlier on in my career, my point of view and my own skill set would have been expanded. Yep.
Well, thank you all for all of that. Definitely, it's really reassuring because I think a number of the things that you've said that have been the impact so far were our goals from the jump. And of course, the goal and the hope is to continue building this and having more of an impact and making sure more people know the name Expand the Canon, but also the content and the intention and why it's there, and that there is a role for anyone in classics and a voice of almost anyone in classics. And I actually am totally on board, Alicia. It's so funny that you say that because one of my dreams and goals is I would love for us to have a physical theater in New York City with a reading room, with a library. And I mean, part of it, right, is the goal is that no one ever has to do this work again. The goal is that these names, this perspective that women have always been a part of history, gender expansive people have always been writing and contributing and had agency and ideas, and we're a massive part of the world that we have built, and we just don't acknowledge that. Hopefully that's a perspective and a reality that we never go back to. And I would love to have a full library reading room. I would love to publish monologue books and anthologies of these plays to make sure that every university, every college, maybe every high school has a physical copy so that these don't get lost again. Desiree has been saying how many rabbit holes you have to go down to find this stuff. Hopefully they just no longer become rabbit holes. They are just in the fabric of culture, that we are commissioning living playwrights to be in conversation with these titles, because that's the way, by like referencing and having these characters still in our minds and hearts, that's how we interweave this into where we are as a theatrical tradition, a theatrical community is embracing these titles. So I hope that we can do that we continue to partner and co-produce and encourage all these wonderful theaters that we've been talking to, and many, many more, to do these plays and widen their audiences and widen their scope and their perspective. And then hopefully we can have a home for them to be in conversation with us, and that we can have 10,000 physical books in a library in the near future. And we don't have to be sending people, hey, I know you're going on vacation to XYZ place. Could you look up this one play that we can only find there? And it is such a joy and a delight and an honor that there are so many other brilliant people going on this journey. And it inspires me and gives me hope that as we keep pushing and working, that really could be the future, is the canon has been expanded. And like I can just sit back on the beach and have a drink and be like, great, yeah, I'm gonna reference Hannah Cowley and you're gonna get it. So that's my dream. being in any country, making stupid jokes about dead lady playwrights, and they are well received.
I think that's anybody's dream. Any niche humorist's dream is to just say something and people understand what they're saying. Incredible. I think that's a lovely place to wrap this up, at least the podcast portion. The party can continue. But I just want to thank everybody for coming and for sharing and helping us
Just
reintroduce
one last
ourselves.
thing. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
I cannot say enough for the podcast. That those are treasures. And I know they're a lot of work, and I know that it's not easy, but I I, I think they're invaluable. And I hope that in all this wanting to go in every direction, that we don't lose that, because I think they're so invaluable.
I agree. Plug for the podcast. Everybody listen. Yeah, I wanted to thank everybody for coming and helping us record this so that podcast listeners can be reintroduced to us and so that we can share it with far and wide with whomever cares to listen. And just to be able to officially start a new chapter of Expand the Canon and just kind of keep doing the work that we've been doing. And I know because I was like moderating, I didn't really say anything about myself, but I'm just very happy to be a part of this team because I'm the newbie here, but I'm very, very thankful to be in community with such lovely people who are focused on doing such incredible work. And for anybody listening or watching this, I want them to know that they can get involved by expanding the canon in their own communities, whether that's checking out the plays on our list, advocating in their classrooms, sharing our podcast, just telling people about the work that we're doing is really, really helpful. And as you know, our door is always open. So people can always join this work if they're passionate about it and just kind of keep tabs on us and what we're doing. And we would absolutely love that. So I think if you have a cuckoo, a fun beverage nearby, we can do a little toast. It's the morning for me, so we're being weird with it, but a toast to the future of Expand the Canon. Cheers, everyone.
Dum dum.